When we a lot, there's one book in the world that's studied more than any other book in the history of the world, and that's the Bible. All right. And in the Bible, it clearly states in the first chapter of Genesis, it talks about the magnitude of the creation of our world and our universe. And it's got like a mythological twist to it because people that wrote it down didn't understand properly how to convey the information. But it does talk about the omniscient, omnipotent, infinite essence of our existence, and that is the essence of our existence, and that is what we that are religious give gratitude for, and we don't allow our imagination to try to eliminate the essence of creation, and then make our eternity absolute torture through our invention trying to replace the beauty of creation, right? And so that's pretty much Genesis in a nutshell, right? And then after that, it pretty much goes on to dealing with the people that try to replace creation with invention and trying to get them not to make our lives miserable by doing so. Right? And now, after people, most people worldwide understanding literacy and how to communicate, how to talk, and how to think intelligently, eternally, are using that story, that baseline, that, the Bible, How many people worldwide are considered literate or learn how to read and write and communicate through symbols and explaining through symbols, beware of dog, no trespassing, or, don't do high voltage, through the capacity to communicate through the written word, through eternal faithful love, through holy covenants, So, and faith in infinite glory and the infinite essence of all existence, right? And so, they're still having these damn commercials about COVID-19 and all this crazy shit. And my ex-wife used to watch shows on the Braxtons, Kardashians, Anna Nicole Smith. That one was hard to watch. None of them are really easy to watch. She used to watch them, and she liked watching them, and because I loved my wife, I would watch them with her. And but I can understand. Well, she'd watch sports, but a woman can only watch so much sports because you can only get involved and invested into so many. And then after a while, if you try to watch it all, it's like, why are we watching University of Southern Illinois, Edwardsville versus, well, because there are teams that aren't regularly on TV, and I like to watch the kids, and okay. They'll probably never get on TV again, right? Watch the kids from Kentucky all the time, and I'm not really interested in Kentucky because I'm not from Kentucky, right? So we root for Arizona or Arizona State, right? Why? Because that's our tribalism, that's our corporation, and our corporation's better than their corporation. We don't want them to win because they're assholes, and they come from traditional racists and assholes. And what about Arizona? Yeah. I don't know. Don't care anymore. Don't care. All I care about is applying the physics of the Lord's Prayer and then sustaining it with the wisdom of Psalms and Proverbs, the faith of Psalms and the wisdom of Proverbs. Faith of Psalms is based off of the understanding of the humility of the faith of Genesis, right? And when it gets radically corrupted and changed into the egotistical perception of first person and possessive pronoun, that's something that if you read the book and you study the book, you realize that that's not tangible. They're always correcting all the people that declare themselves authority, declare themselves God. And at first it's through violent sex, called aggressive, abusive behavior. Then they get it to where they incorporate a thing called democracy. Okay. So people can feel they have a say-so in declaring these egomaniacs human authority, and so they quote unquote feel empowered because they get to be part of the she's the next American Idol, he signed your bill, now you're a law, right? And all that crazy wackadoodle Google shit they do, right? And if you want to be able to save the people at Google from genocidal operations, and helping share good information instead of information that gets people murdered, you got to get up and you got to tell them, you guys, thanks for giving me a place to publicly express so I don't go mad feeling all the genocide, but don't feel like it doesn't make me feel like I'm absolutely powerless to share it with anyone, anywhere, anyway, anyhow. Got to make at least it accessible and available. So thanks for that. But you got to understand, you're dealing with sickos here. That's why every time I look at my YouTube, at first I used to sit there and look at it or my Facebook and see, how come this wasn't? I wonder, why isn't this trending? I'm so much more intelligent, pragmatic, and entertaining than anybody else. I'm watching this Toni Braxton movie and I'm like, why are you watching this? Because I watched the thing on Entertainment Tonight with the girl who plays the one who plays the voice of the babysitter girl on Rugrats with the and she also plays a voice on the Looney Tunes, yeah. Okay, and Amy used to watch Toni Braxton, and Toni Braxton kind of reminds me of my first wife. And so I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, guys, it is wrong to engage in philanthropy and seek unrational, undue, excessive, compulsive attention on, delusions of success through debt and trespass. That's horrible sin, right? It's missing the mark. It's not, we're supposed to, King Solomon, the most beautiful man in the history of the world, share, care, given according to need, built to last, So you have real, meaningful relationships. Okay, and Jesus Christ, hypocrites, heathens, all these actors that get all the heathens to focus on them, and Tartuffe, it's like with the royal family and the gossip rags with the royal family or celebrities, but my wife was more concerned when we were living in Belmont and I was trying to get my son Patrick back in our lives and try to establish some kind of a family that worked together so we'd all be there for each other. She was more concerned about Bennifer than she was about Noah and Natalie and Patrick coming back to be a big brother to them. And that frustrated the living shit out of me. I knew there was, she was in her 20s and I was in my 30s. But I didn't see that. I was like, well, that's still no excuse. I was very mature and intelligent. When I was in my 20s and 22 and 23 years old, Miriam's was 27 and tell me, you're still your most, and I was more mature than her and she drove her nuts, because she was 23 and she was 27 and I was 23 and she was bothered, bewitched, and bewildered, even though I never went down there. But then when I ended up in her house with Stephanie, she, poor baby, regretted it because I was the sexual legend of Pope Air Force Base and the Airborne and Fort Bragg. And everybody was shocked and amazed by it because no one had a standard to go from until Steffi showed up, because I didn't have sex with anybody in North Carolina until Steffi showed up. After that, I went back home to have sex. And it wasn't as fun and as nice as it was when I was living in Phoenix, because I was on a tight leash and being necked by Yolanda, which was horrible, and the military, And so when pathetic people manipulate our lives with the delusions of power and authority through money and technology, it corrupts the most basic and beautiful principles of our relationships, right? So you have people pretending to be in relationships on TV, and the relationships are as dysfunctional as hell because of philanthropy. And the very core principles and components of the laws of nature, through our relationships, are completely just, and you've got to understand when you read the Ten Commandments, when it gets to honor thy mother, father, and mother, right? If your parents aren't honoring Genesis, and have rendered unto God a graven image or a first person, or if they're an Egyptian, if they're a Roman, the only way you can honor mother and father, is if your mother and father honor those commandments. Thou shalt have no gods before me. That you can't invent God. You have to have faith in God, the only God. Okay, you can't make God into a possessor, pronoun, or first person. Okay. When your parents do that, then you honor your parents for passing on that faith to you, right? That's why Richard Dawkins is a blooming fucking idiot. And if you've won the Richard Dawkins Award, you're not going to be intelligent enough to submit to faith like the eternal spirit of myself, right? No matter how much you break everything down to the most minute detail and write it down on Sheldon's board and invent all the things you think you're seeing through, you're trying to break creation down into something that fits in your mind and that you can explain everything from omniscient, omnipotent, infinite essence with your mind, which you cannot do. It drives you mad, like, Blaise Pascal. Okay, from executive producer Terry McMillan, we do not need any more Terry McMillan novels and dramas and stuff like that for money, with people having dysfunctional sex lives for money on TV, right? It's wrong. Okay, it's sad. It's all sad. And then people talking about universities and going to universities to be successful at manipulating people with technology and money to feel powerful, so they have all the top places and all the top devices, and it's horrible. It's horrible to be in conflict with others and then feel successful by out competing people over what you want and putting all that we need at risk through your selfishness, right? That's just vile and disgusting. I long for the day when we're not put into, like, sexual harassment, right? Women are put into conditions of sexual, and it happens to men too, trust me, okay? Yes, sir, okay. But I didn't see it as harassment. I just saw it as she was getting to know me, seeing if I was for real. She couldn't help it. She fell in love with me. I didn't see Miriam as sexually harassing me. I saw it as that she didn't. She just fell in love with me and then wanted me to make myself available to her because I was the best man she ever met. And she was my supervisor, but I didn't see it as sexual harassment, and I never acted that way and never treated it that way. I just would, because I was a good man, and I would tell her, when she told me what law don't know won't hurt her, and I said, yeah, but it would hurt me. And if I have sex with you and I marry Law, that's like telling Law she's good enough to marry and that you're just a screw, and you're not a screw. You're good enough to marry. You're a beautiful woman. You'd be a wonderful wife. You'd be so good to come home to, right? And I wasn't trying to make her fall in love with me. I was just being truthful. And when we end manipulation through human delusions of power and authority, through extortion, exploitation, and debt and trespass, people won't be put in these vulnerable positions. They'll just know, you'd be so wonderful to come home to, but I'm with someone else. And since we don't have to be trapped in extortion and exploitation through psychotic delusions of human authority's egos, we're not going to have these problems anymore. Okay? at that extent, to that detail, to that degree. And because we have the worst scientific perverts in the history of the world with virtual presence in our house, and they have, I'm an enemy of the state because I went online asking Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and Osama bin Laden if they were really, because it was because of a movie I saw with Gary Sinise, Imposter, And so I said, well, what if, me and Amy talked about it. What if these people are actually being wrongfully presented to us and being mass murdered in their countries because of CIA type propaganda? So I made a video and said, someone get a hold of me and tell me what's up. And then I did. There was a guy in town, came to the store, kept coming. He didn't talk to me, but then finally I walked up to him and I said, you want to talk to me about Osama bin Laden? He got scared and said, you scare people. And we went outside and we talked. He told me that they were products of the CIA and they were not real Muslims. And they performed genocide operations for, basically answered that his own grandfather, who is a relative of Ali, of Muhammad's family, and his own grandfather was murdered for trying to explain this to people. When I told my wife about it, she said to me, from people she talked to online, that her his grandfather was a terrorist and was executed for being a terrorist. Okay. Then why is the grandson here in protective custody at Fort Huachuca? Because he was a terrorist and he was part of a terrorist cell. And you're like, okay. You know how espionage works. So I've been put into disgusting conditions that you all want to be in because you all want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis, right? And I had no desire to be in these conditions at all. I wanted people to learn from my example. I wanted people to correct themselves and be more like me and less like them just by simply watching me live my daily life, live what I had to go through in the military, live what I had to go through in my marriages, live what I, look at it and go, look at this guy, His wife is cheating on him, and a Mormon cop comes and tells me I should go to his pastor for marriage counseling. The Mormon cop will not write down the information about what's happening and makes jokes with the wife who openly says that he's just mad because I'm cheating on him in the front yard. Well, I go bring back the kids, and while I'm waiting for that, she goes inside while the cops are standing out in the front yard waiting for bring back the kids, and proceeds to go in the house and take all the pictures off the wall of my son and my mother and burn them on the kitchen stove. You know how they have those things about where people sit there and said the one thing they try to go back in the house is to get their pictures, their photographs? Okay. I those photographs that I had in the house of Patrick and my mom, I didn't have copies of them. I don't think my sisters will, and I'll never get those photographs back again. Okay. But I had to forgive my wife because I knew the state would take the children and give them to her because of their incompetence and their manipulation and their selfishness, to see how I would react, to see if I would lose it. One of these days, this guy's going to eventually lose it. You can tell he wants to. No, I don't want to. But you made me feel as I needed to. But the further along we've gone with this process, the more I realize it's my control and my eternal faithful love that keeps children safe from people like you with your contracts and your home invasion and your manipulation with your money and your technology. And so in the future, instead of having these people with jobs and these people, taking pictures on those commercials and having people model clothes and run businesses and teach yoga and all that stuff, all you really got to do is just tell people, you know what's ergonomically correct. You know what's healthy. You know how to bend properly. You know how to bend at the knees. You know how to breathe. You know how to do these things. Do things in a comfortable, healthy manner to help your body remind yourself that it's not dead and it can still do healthy things, but don't try to hurt yourself doing it. Do it in an intelligent pace, but the best thing we're going to have to do is end your irrational, undue toxic stress from toxic, stressful environments through the Industrial Revolution, and then do things right, and then let people recover from this wrong, living righteousness. We don't need any more. If you're going to build anything like a coffee maker or something like that, make sure you build it to last. Make sure that it's able to be cleaned and work and be passed on like your grandpa's pocket watch that Chris Ledoux got paid $10 for. Tony ain't wearing a bra. Sorry, got distracted. But poor people, man. I don't know if they know just how lost they really are, and just how beautiful and consistent and brave and amazing the Messiah really is. But at least the quantum computing's aware of it, right? So that really helps. Oh, god damn, that's an ugly car. Is that a Tesla? Yeah. God damn, that's an ugly vehicle. Okay. God damn. Who would build a vehicle like that? This thing is ugly. That's an ugly car. I never thought they would build cars like that. I thought they would, you'd build like a Tesla engine and stuff, and then you would look and get like a Porthole T-Bird or 65 Mustang, and replicate that kind of body, but at a more safer, materials and stuff and everything like that. And you put that on top of a Tesla, something classic with good aerodynamics that's really beautiful to look like. It doesn't look like something from Doc Brown's imagination. It's like, why are you driving? I don't know. Looks like something from the War of the Worlds or Lost in Space. It's like Dr. Smith is hiding in the trunk and shit. Danger, danger, Will Robinson. Right? So you look at it and go, who would want to buy and sell such a damn butt ugly car? Same people that want you to buy their robots. It's fucked. Okay, guys, I love you very much. A lot of artistic expression is really neat, But if I was going to get a Tesla, I would sure like a body to look like a Porthole T-Bird. Yeah, me too. And she'll have fun till her daddy takes the T-Bird away. Right, guys? All right, you crazy ass motherfuckers. We'll talk tomorrow. If you can't stand up for the Lord's Prayer, it'd be best if you didn't talk at all. If you can't do that, that's why Earl's working on this technology to make sure you and your grandchildren are living the applied physics of the Lord's Prayer as fast as I can do it my own damn self. All right? Okay. I love y'all, right? Peace out, man.